Recording in progress.
Okay, we are ready.
All right. Well, Miguel, thank you so much for applying for the position here for the accessibility advocate at PSU. I really appreciate you taking the time for this interview as well. Your resume looks great. Can you tell me a little bit about your job as an accessibility advocate at PCC?
Yeah, certainly. So at PCC, they have established this amazing program with the Office of Accessibility. And as a disability advocate there, we have been working on different projects to make the college more accessible for everyone. And some of these projects have included creating a podcast on students with disabilities called Let's Talk. We have we've had students who have created the Delta Alpha Pi, which is the very first disability honor society, which is pretty amazing. And some of the other things that our advocates have been doing is putting um, wheelchair charging stations in on each campus, since PCC has 4 different campuses. Um, some of the things that we also been doing is I've been helping out like the Dreamer Center, which is a center for students who have different immigration statuses, and I have helped them create different brochures and flyers in Spanish and help them with finding accommodations. And it's just been a good experience with going out to the community. We have celebrated the 33rd anniversary of the ADA with the Americans with Disabilities Act that was made in 1990. And it was such an amazing event. And I hope that my experience, I can bring this to PSU and make some changes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing to hear all that PCC is doing to support like disability culture and to support their disabled students. Was the culture at PCC always so supportive of this work?
So a lot of students had to um, fight just to get a center. Um, Unfortunately, we don't have like an actual multicultural center, like identity-based center for students with disabilities. And so that was one of our goals. And actually, I have some experience working at different community colleges where I have made disability clubs. And here um, at Eastern Oregon University, I created a club called the Accessibility Club, where students and faculty had a safe space. If they had disabilities, they could come and hang out once a week for an hour. We would do a lot of discussions on like disability rights and how people were feeling and how the term was going, and that was a really big success. Um, I also created a disability club at Clark College called 2020 Visionaries, and we met in person at the time because this was pre-COVID, where we discussed even working with like the career center there. And one of our goals was to like use the disability club to connect with career services and regarding like creating they did some events of like the penguin, oh, what was that called? They called it like the penguin clothing drive. And so what we wanted to do with one of our projects that we were thinking of doing before COVID hit was to have a clothing drive for people with disabilities, and so that they could, if they wanted to go apply for jobs, that they could go into the career center and get some help with that. Um, but going back to culture at PCC, a lot of the things that I have personally done is work with a lot of our Spanish speaking students, because a lot of them don't have there's not a lot of people in the disability services office that speak Spanish. And so I have been kind of as a mentor and as a guide to bring them into the field of disability, and for them not to feel scared to ask for help.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing all that, Miguel. It sounds like, while the institution at large, it sounds like this has really been rather, a grassroots effort from the students, it sounds like, rather than like an institutional idea on PCC's part. And it sounds like you've brought that enthusiasm to share, uh, at all colleges. And so that's really exciting because, disability culture at PSU is something that we're hoping to develop, which is why we're developing these, disability advocate positions. So, how, and also, could you tell me some more about the cross department collaborations? Because that sounds like it's been really successful at all the schools that you've worked at.
Yeah, I think a lot of the biggest things that I have learned personally is connecting with people, regardless connecting to them in person or even connecting with them virtually. One of the things that for me has made it more successful is always checking up on them and having those connections, not just like talking to them once, but having like every checking in every couple of weeks, keeping tabs on like certain items that were built and put together. One of the things that I personally have used that's been a success in all of these different areas is finding those allies and then those spaces to kind of build those bridges, to have allies come together. Um, and even people who don't know anything about disability, it's always a good thing to have those allies, and even just having like a little quick, reference sheet or like a flyer or just any type of information that like these people a lot of students can know, and even faculty, on finding these spaces that are safe for them. I think it's a very important thing for all of us, and it for me when I did the disability clubs and um, at both of these institutions, my goal was to always forefront all of the students and everything that they needed. My goal was always to put students first and faculty as well, and it was a really nice because it was starting to create a sense of community and a sense of belonging in both areas. So I think a big issue and a big thing that we need to work on is just to make sure that we collaborate with other students, and even creating some type of trainings or a type of sponsorships where you can have some advocates work in different centers, so then students can kind of get that experience of having people who face these daily challenges, who they can ask questions, or they can go and help them, with their accessibility. For me, in a lot of these spaces in the other institutions, I was literally the only one man show running all of these things, and so it really was tiring. But I'm glad I had allies to support who were very supportive.
Yeah, would you be interested? I love that, Miguel. I really do. Would you be interested in, spending some of your time in some of the identity centers here at PSU and bringing awareness that way?
Oh, I
If we
would
were
love
able to
to.
arrange
I think, yeah, I would definitely love, going to like the Casa Latina and some of the other identity centers, just so they can have those experiences. And I think we could make it a little bit further and going into student government and talking to them about accessibility and universal design, student success. I think that's really important as well.
that.
Talking to them of like, making these connections. I think that can give us a little bit more leeway on maybe getting some more funding in the future. I know that there is I think one big way that we can partner is partnering up with the different newspapers that are here at PSU, um, to lift up people, students with disabilities voices. And so we are heard a little more on campus. And those are some of the ideas that we can also incorporate into our um, disability advocacy work.
Thank you so much, Miguel. I see on your resume you have so much experience with like accessible documents and making documentation. Is that something that you know want to continue working in, or you sound really like you want to do more of work in the disability culture arena?
I think they both come hand in they both come hand in hand. Um, without accessible documentation, there's not much we can do. So I think both of these issues are super important and very close to my heart. Unfortunately, I've been in different areas and in different situations where accessing documentation wasn't the most accessible, and so I had to create a lot of it on my own and use different techniques to incorporate these issues or incorporate these techniques into different job aspects and into different job categories. And a lot of the work that I have done on my resume is I've literally gone above and beyond for a lot of these places so that they know that paving paths for people with disabilities can be done. And even though it may not be easy or it may not be the most fun work at times, and I'm gotta admit I'm not the best at it, but I do the best that I can.
No, it sounds like I mean, yeah, you're doing great. You're doing a lot of great work. So yeah, I can't, yeah, that's just, we hope to have that kind of environment and support for our students with disabilities here at PSU and employees with disabilities for that matter, because you're right. It's hard to extrapolate the two, the culture and accessibility is they do go hand in hand. Yeah. So where do you see yourself in 5 years, Miguel,
So
professionally?
professionally, I mean, I would love to have finished my master's in business administration in the next 5 years. That would be nice. I see myself probably down the line, and I know that, since PSU does have a program for the visually impaired, um, they would be a great resource to connect to with us so that we can kind of expand some of our knowledge and our experiences with them as well in the master's program. um, my goal is to create those create solutions for a lot of the boundaries for a lot of the students that attend. For example, across the river in Washington, there's a lot of students who come in to the State School for the Blind and who are young adults that need a lot of help learning independent skills and just learning skills in general. And so I think we can make a lot of partnerships with them and connecting those students to either finding employment or if we can't get it here at PSU, then finding a way that we could collaborate with Clark College as well and some of the other community colleges. And instead of being each individual base areas, then we can all collaborate as a unit here in the Northwest.
Yeah, thank you. Um, I'm curious, do you prefer working independently or collaborating with a team?
I love collaborating with teams just because it gives me an opportunity to learn from other people. I'm someone who I've even done like a lot of some journalism work, and probably my favorite memories has been working with other people because lots of like giving me a lot of feedback helps a lot. And I just like building those relationships with people and those friendships, and just having those types of networking and working opportunities, collaborating with others. We can learn so much from each other than when we're all alone.
It's true, yeah, for sure. So, so Miguel, what would your coworkers say about you?
My coworkers,
Mhm.
I know that a lot of them have really enjoyed having me around, and I kind of feel sometimes that some of them take me a little bit for granted.
Okay, how so?
And just because I'm always willing to go above and beyond, and I've had a lot of coworkers over the years that have been a little bit shy about jumping in with both feet and just giving it a try because they're not sure like how they'll be perceived or how they'll be connecting with others, you know. And I understand because I moved across from Eastern Washington, now living in Portland. You know, I understand what it is to feel fearful and to leave everything you know. But I think for me, the biggest thing is getting out of your comfort zone. And so even though a lot of my coworkers enjoy working with me, is that like I sometimes push them a little more so they can learn and grow. And I just have to they would also say that like I have a tendency to just learn from them, give them feedback, but also be there for them if they need support while working.
And what about your supervisors? What would they say about you?
My supervisors have told me that I have been a joy to work with, that I'm always eager and have a smile, and that I have been appreciated for all the work that I had been doing, and um, it's it's been I'm glad I'm very just how grateful to have a good rapport with them, and it's been something that like I've enjoyed working with them because I feel like they're learning a lot from me, I'm learning a lot from them, and it's just a collaborative team where we can all share from each other.
Great. Um, let's see. What is the best thing about your current position? What do you like most about your current position?
I really enjoy that we can be free to come up with new projects and create new ideas. I did have an idea of since we do have a radio station at PSU, that we should have more students with disabilities be part of that as well, just so that they can have an opportunity to have those experiences, um, learning about radio and broadcasting, and I feel we can expand more on so many other things as well. Um, my one of my favorite things is probably being part of the podcast of Let's Talk, and I just really enjoy coming up with interviews and interviewing all of the guests on the show. That's been a lot of fun. One of my favorite things has been just working with a lot of the Spanish speaking students and adding them on the podcast and letting them have a voice because a lot of them don't really get to have a voice on campus. And so I'm really humble and grateful that I can be part of that and that they can have because of me that they can have an opportunity to learn and grow.
That's amazing. Now tell me what you like least about your current position.
Um, what do I like least about my position? That's a really hard question. Um, I think the hardest thing about my position is sometimes it can also be freedom, because we sometimes don't know if if the work that we're doing is going to pay off in the long run. There's just been some times where we've been a little bit uncertain about, you know, different areas and different perspectives on like how our work is being perceived by our supervisors or even just knowing if we're like if this oh will this project go through, and so it just kind of feels a little bit shaky sometimes, but like knowing and going back to like students and just talking to them about like what they think of the project. I think for me talking to other students and hearing their voices on like what's going on and about the current projects, they give a lot of the times they gave me hope, and that's something that's really grateful and I appreciate.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Miguel. It's been really awesome getting to know you. I've asked you almost a dozen questions. My last one is, do you have any questions for me before we end this interview or about the position or anything I can answer for you?
Was there anything that you would like to know more about?
Oh, well, is there anything that you'd like to tell me more about? How about that?
Um, yeah, I I can tell you that I come with a lot of unique experiences that maybe other people may not have. Um, Definitely one of the things that I think is really important for our students and our in our disabled population on campus and off campus is to always worry about those that are online because I feel I went to a university where it was all online and that was really hard to connect with students. So maybe creating those avenues and those in those perspective ways on ways we can incorporate those students who are online that may not be at PSU in person, but also letting them know that they're wanted and that they're valued as well.
Wow, that's awesome. Miguel, thank you so much for your time and for answering all my questions. I really do appreciate it and offering me a little bit more of yourself. It's been a pleasure getting to know you today.
Yeah, thank you
And
so much.
I will be in touch very soon. Either way, we have a couple of more candidates to interview before we make our decision for the next round, but you'll hear from me either way. I'll be in touch soon.
Awesome, sounds good.
Thanks.
You're welcome.